Phoenix Rising community, we are back again. We are live. And I know I say this all the time, but you all just don't realize how much I believe in our business owners. Don't I have a treat for you today? I mean, we have Leslie. Leslie's going to be here with us from Vino 301 Wine Concierge. She's going to tell us her story and how she got started. And you're going to have a good time. So before we get started, because I hate interrupting our guests, but before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to hold off for whatever reason, as soon as you hear a nugget that you can take with you, then like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll probably even point one of those nuggets out, because when I tell you what Leslie has to share with us today is going to be amazing. Her story, her journey, and how she got to be a business owner, it's going to blow your mind. So one of the things I want to point out real quick. We are this whole Phoenix Rising community is developing in front of my eyes. From a concept of let's interview business owners to a concept of let's create 1 million more African American businesses of color here in the United States, to a concept of starting and beginning to develop our free ebook on the Phoenix Rising Movement BDC. We're going to have we're developing an ebook that started out really at a meeting in Philadelphia on the Phoenix Rising Movement BDC, Business Development Club, and it's going to show you how in your community, whether you're in LA, Chicago, Houston, the district, Baltimore, Philly, New York, and a whole bunch of other cities across the country, how you can get just 3 people together and start to develop your business and step over that fear that we're always talking about. So that's enough from me. You all have heard my mouth before. I'm going to get out the way, and I'm going to introduce you to our guest today, Leslie. Leslie, thank you for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. How are you today?
Good. Thanks so much, Ken, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm doing really well today.
That's
and I'm
good.
excited to hear about your goal. It's ambitious, but I think it's very achievable. I think it's extremely achievable. So that is great. I'm glad to be a part of this movement. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So we're going to jump right into it. Like I said, I try to respect my guests' time, and I really appreciate that they take time out to do these interviews with us. So we ask everybody the same question from the gate. We believe, and we always state it like this, we believe that our business class are superheroes. They're the ones who are creating opportunities, creating the jobs, and they are the ones who basically have discovered their superpower. So with that, there's a Marvel Comics, what is your origin story? Everyone has one, Spider-Man, Captain America. So Leslie, what is your origin story? How'd you get to be Vino 301?
Well, it's interesting because I always joke about it was my my midlife crisis. I had a career in public policy. So just an introduction, I grew up in the Prince George's County area. So, right outside of DC, got involved in local politics, which, could be good or bad. You never know what your child to get involved in that. But, and then, just had this passion that to help people. And so that's how I started in public policy and had a career in transportation, and was just tired, because sometimes people, operate from a position of love, what have you, but it can be exhausting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It can just be exhausting. And when you get into that particular industry, it's more than just helping people. It's the politics surrounding it and what have you. And most people, I would say, who go into that type of industry at a very young age, they don't think about the politics. They think about the desire to make the world a better place. So, older and wiser and exhausted, what do? We go, oh, we're going to look for another job, right? Like you don't say, well, some people do, but you go, I'm going to look for another job. And so it took me 6 months to update my resume, right? Because who wants to do that? That's not
Right.
really fun. And then it took me like another 6 months to start like sending out the resumes, like looking at the jobs and what have you. So one day, I was down at the National Gallery, and they have a garden out there. And when the world was open, they used to have concerts in the garden. And so I'm sitting there on my phone, just flipping through job announcements, like from Indeed or what have you. And I saw this job announcement from someplace saying, take courses as a chef. You can become a chef or what have you. And it made me think back when I was in high school and I wanted to go to culinary school. And my guidance counselor said, oh, you won't make any money. Like you don't want to pursue this. And this is pre the Food Network and what have you.
Right.
Like I want to go to her now and go, what you think about that?
Right.
So immediately, and that's why I always tell people now when they're talking to teenagers or what have you, don't step on their dreams. Like, if they want to sit on top of a mountain, I'm quite sure they can sit on top of a mountain, and who knows, like that might be the next biggest hop. But don't step on their dreams, like help them find a path. So I immediately like shut that down at 17, 18 years old.
Right.
And when I was looking for that new job, I'm like, well, this is something I've always wanted to do. Well, at that time in my life, I was like, I can't start over, right? Because you got real bills.
Right.
Just because you have a dream doesn't mean your real bills go anyplace.
Right.
They knock on your door even harder. So I decided to get into the wine industry, and I wanted to get specifically into distribution. But everybody was telling me that you start at the bottom of distribution. So I said, well, let me make this a social event where I can take people to the vineyards and I can meet the winemakers and the vineyard owners or what have you. And then I would develop my portfolio by getting to know them and building those relationships, because realistically, everything in life is built on relationships,
Right.
regardless of what industry that you were in. And so it started off with me renting a van on the weekends, and I had an ad that people signed up that they were interested in Maryland wine, and back then I started my company in 2013. So at the time, Maryland wine had a footprint, but not nearly as big as it is now.
Right.
Because most people associate it with like Virginia wine, but
Right.
not more so Maryland wine. And so I would pick people up. I rent the van for the weekend, pick people up, take them to the vineyards, da 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 da. And then people would call and say, hey, I want to do a birthday party. And at the time, offering wine to our birthday parties wasn't in my portfolio, but I said, oh, I can do that, right? Or
Right.
somebody would say, I want a bachelorette party. And I'm like, I never did that, but I could do that. Like I could do that. So at that time, I was always very open to what was out there. And eventually I grew the company, still not really thinking about distribution at that time, but that part had taken off. And we started offering wine tours on multiple wine tours on the weekends, on the weekdays, and specialize in different tours or what have you. So then when COVID happened, everything shut down and
Right.
we could not do. And so I'm thinking, well, my business is over, right? It's like completely over. I can't go to the vineyards. Everything is shut down or what have you. And we reimagined it and turned it into virtual wine tastings. And so we started, and to be honest with you, Ken, I didn't think anybody was going to pay us to teach them about wine over a Zoom call, right?
Right.
because everybody's just figuring it out. And so we had been able to sustain the company with doing these virtual wine tastings. We opened up for a little while in 2020 over the summer to do wine tastings, but we noticed that the COVID numbers were going back up.
Right.
So we shut down. And in the meantime, I said to myself, people are going to drink wine regardless. Like, regardless if they're on a tour, regardless if we're teaching them about it. So at the end of 2020, we opened an online wine store, which is the Wine Concierge, which focuses on a broader range of wines. Vino 301 focuses mostly on local wines. And the Wine Concierge focuses on women and minority winemakers. That's our niche, and we sell wine online there. So that's pretty much the story. So now we are going to start tours again in April, as well as the wine club with the Wine Concierge.
Wow. So you said a lot. You put a lot out there. So we have to, and I know our regular viewers get tired of me saying this, but we have to go back.
Let's go back. Let's like at minute 3 or 4, what
Right.
have you. Let's go back.
We have to go back. So you're sitting out in and you know that National Art Gallery, listening to music, flipping through your phone.
Right.
All right. Now I understand
sipping on wine.
Sipping on wine. I understand that the culinary classes caught your eye.
Uh-huh.
All right. But that's not exactly where you went.
Right.
So we got to go back to that point. So you the wine distribution, because you said so much, but let's focus on the idea. Let's focus on, all right, so I like wine, maybe some other people like wine. Like where did the idea, because there's so many things I want to hit upon. But let's start with the idea. Culinary got some juices flowing, and then what happened?
And so I realized that I cannot afford to go and be a full-time student.
Okay.
And really commit to this.
Right.
So I said, well, let me find something adjacent to it. And again, at the time, I had not studied wine. I enjoyed wine and I was an expert consumer, but I did not know anything about wine.
I know a few of those.
And so when I said, oh, this is a career that could be adjacent and I could get into distribution, which is essentially sales, right?
Right.
But I still needed to build upon those relationships. So what I started doing was I started taking courses in wine, not necessarily like a certification at the time, but to broaden my knowledge about wine. And I started doing things like volunteering at different wine festivals so I could be exposed to it and also maybe not make that financial investment at that time, because at this point I didn't know. And the other thing too, Ken, at that point I was still looking for a job. Like, I didn't realize until midway into it. And actually what happened was I had started applying for internships because I said to myself, I gotta figure out if I really like this, right? Like, I enjoy the consumption of wine and hanging out with my girlfriends, drinking wine or what have you, but do I enjoy this enough to make this sea change in my life? So I wrote to a number of wine bars, and there was one wine bar in the district, and the owners were like about my age, and they said, well, let me meet this crazy chick who could do this. And so after work, I would go and volunteer in an unpaid internship to be in the wine bar so I could see the business itself.
Okay.
And I would work their events and work their tasting room or what have you, and do inventory, which was another way that I was learning about the industry in wine. And then I had interviewed at another place for an internship at the same time. And that person said to me, well, I have this business idea for you. So really that's how it got started. He said, I have an idea of how to do distribution in the state of Maryland. And I was sitting there at this internship interview going, no, I don't think he realizes I'm here to intern for him. And he's telling me about this business concept that he had. And that's when it clicked for me to say, this is more than me seeking out a job. This is an opportunity to open this area here that no one had kicked in the door on. No one, and again, this is in 2013, which doesn't seem that long ago, but the wine industry in Maryland was really small at that time. And there were fewer than, I would say, 50 vineyards in Maryland, right?
Right.
And they were just trying to establish a presence. As what I was told at that time was, wine was as popular as horse racing in Maryland. And the only time people know about horse racing is the Preakness.
Right.
You know, they don't know what have you. So its popularity was in the teens as far as the public was concerned. And so people were looking in ways to expose it. And it just happened to be a perfect marriage at that time of me looking for something else and someone noticing that there was a niche and seeing that I was eager enough to possibly fulfill that itch.
Okay. Now I want to explore that more, but this is a perfect opportunity for us to do some shameless self-promotion.
Okay.
Because that is pretty much what the concept of Phoenix Rising. Like you put your and let me know how this resonates with you if it does. You put yourself in a situation, you started taking steps, and then all of a sudden the universe said, oh, you look like you're for real, and started pulling you forward and opening up for you.
Yes.
And so, and that's kind of what we talk about in the Phoenix Rising movement, BDC, or Business Development Club, is that's what you start to put together. Is trying to put together that synergy to let the universe know you're for real. And then the universe is going to, I mean, we had Ramon on from Connecticut, and he tells his story about when he started his marketing firm, and it was kind of the same thing. And you're giving us this thing, like everyone we talk to, it seems like that the essence of that theory is consistent. So from scrolling on your phone, drinking wine, to a free internship, to to learn more, to hey, you look kind of eager. What do you think about this idea? And so let's go back to that. So he has this idea, he shares it with you, and then what happens?
And so so I start thinking about it, and one of my compasses is I make decisions in threes, meaning, I socialize it. And if it comes back to me on 3 different occasions, I know it sounds kind of like cosmic, what have you, then I'm like, no, this is the universe. This is my spirit talking to me. I should go in this direction. So I had socialized it with different people or what have you. And his business concept wasn't what I pursued, but in discussion, it kept on coming back to me that there is a market for people to learn about wine in a very social environment. And it did not exist in Maryland. There were very few people who had tried and maybe not succeeded in wine tourism. Because again, wine tourism was very foreign in Maryland. It did not well, not born, it just didn't exist.
Exist.
It did not exist. And so, you know how when you are filling out forms and they ask you what industry or what have you, like there was no tourism drop the block. It was in hospitality, it was restaurant, but it wasn't tourism, just plain old fashioned tourism. So it just did not have a good niche. And to have wine tourism at the same time was very difficult at that time. So I knew that just because it didn't exist, there was opportunity there.
So okay, so let's talk about you said something very poignant. Someone told you that for distribution you have to start at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And you said, well, let me start building these relationships. So my question is, because I think this is important for the Phoenix Rising community. What made you say, okay, that's good information, but there might be another way? And pretty much, I think what we're getting from your background is you had that skill set on how to build relationships. So tell us about that thought process. Tell us about that right there. In regards to, well, I'm gonna just build relationships. I hear what you're talking about, but right. I'm just gonna talk to some people.
I'm just gonna talk to, I was just like, well, if people get to know me, then I'm building a book, right? Because in sales, like the most successful salespeople aren't because they can sell 1,000, 1 trillion widgets, is because when they look in their Rolodex, that they have established these relationships with people and those people trust them, which is most important. Mm-hmm. And so when they go to them and say, hey, I'm selling this or I'm doing this, they've established that trust there and they're willing to entertain their conversation. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy from them at that very moment, but they're willing to entertain them. Like I know of individuals I know one particular person, she started off selling Mary Kay and did very well. And then she moved to something else. And then she moved to real estate. And in each of those industries, she has been extremely successful. And it's not because of the product. I mean, I'm quite sure, the product is good or what have you, real estate is good, but it's because she has established credibility and able to build relationships and to succeed in that manner. So when people think of her, they're like, oh, and she's a connector. Like she may not come to you with her handout, but she's saying, hey, you need to meet so-and-so because you are like, or what have you. And again, that's building that relationship and instilling trust between you and that person and another person. And so I just assumed that that's what I could do. Like I may not at the time know the difference between a Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, but I knew that I could learn and I could talk to people and always being very inquisitive, asking a lot of questions that I could figure it out.
So where did that come from? I mean, because I always say about superheroes, and I just lost you. Okay. I always say about superheroes, well, where did that, I can figure it out. Like I think a lot of when I'm talking to folks about starting businesses, or talking to business owners, like that's a key element in most of the folks I talk to. But I figure it out. Like where does that? I'm gonna say audacity, but when I say audacity, I say it in a good way. It's like saying super strength. Right. So where does that audacity come from? That I can figure it out.
Sheer ignorance. just like, well, so-and-so can do it, then I can do it.
Right.
So, and I think it's funny because I was telling somebody this second time around doing a spinoff of my company. I just did not realize, I don't remember the pains of a startup. And so when you do this spinoff, it's like starting up again. And I'm like, it's like having a child and having a second child, because if you remembered everything that went into that first child, no way in hell would you have a second child. Like, you'd be like, I'm good. No. And so I think part of that, when you are starting a business, even if you went to business school, there's things that you don't know or people don't tell you, but you have this desire and this thought that, okay, we can figure this out. We're going to make calculated risk. And I think that's what most entrepreneurs have is, let me make a calculated risk. Now, there becomes a point where you try to figure out, what's the best return of me figuring this out? Like, do I really need to know how to do web development? No, not really. I can hire somebody to do this.
Right.
So you have to find that balance of, I can figure out versus, is my time best suited for this function?
Right. And we talk about that a lot. Phoenix Rising community, you cannot tell me that Leslie has not given you some jewels at this point in the interview. So like, subscribe, and share. Again, we are building a movement, 100, so if you're watching this right now and you don't want to start a business, I don't know how you got this far, but you know someone who does, so share it with them. I mean, the information is literally free on YouTube and Facebook. So share it with them and see if they get some value from it. I know I'm getting value personally, and we're not even all the way done. Like, there's so much stuff that that we're going to get into and delve into. Also, don't forget, we're developing the Phoenix Rising Movement BDC, which is Business Development, stands for Business Development Club. So you're going to be able to do this in your house. You're going to be able to do this at a cigar lounge. You're going to be able to do this at a coffee shop. But it's going to be portable. So again, do the great YouTube stuff. Remember, we're here for one very specific reason: to educate, inform, and inspire. And I think one of the things that Leslie said goes specifically to our mission and our goal. And that is that taking calculated risks. And, I have to figure it out and figure out what's worth my time and what's I could pay somebody to do because it's not worth my time to do it myself, because I can reproduce myself by paying somebody. So again, we are here, Phoenix Rising community, to educate, inform, and inspire. And that's the order that we're going with. So if you watch our earlier videos, I used to switch them around. So we finally got, we're educating first, we're informing, and then we're inspiring you.
We're inspiring.
E-double-I. There we go. So, because everything has to have an acronym these days, and I got to need a hashtag. So my hashtag E-double-I. So
E-double-I.
E-double-I. So it was on this show with Leslie and Vino 301. So Leslie, let's go to the pivot. Mm-hmm. All right. Because we're going to go back to 2013. I just like, that's just how my mind works. People are like, why do you jump around all the time? Because I'm not linear. I'm just not linear. So, but let's go to the pivot. Because I think when somebody's watching this, when COVID at some point gets into the history books, and people are like, what was COVID? We used to wear masks. Yeah, we used to wear masks. And tell me about the pivot. Tell me how you got into the pivot. For those who, you have to be watching this sometime in the future not to know that in March of 2020, right, all of our lives changed.
Right.
So yeah, take us back to March of 2020 for you.
So in March of 2020, this is actually really funny. So in the beginning of 2020, I was a scholar in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 program.
Oh, okay.
And so in that program, you worked on what was called your opportunity plan. And my opportunity plan was I was going to open a wine bar and had done a whole lot of research and da 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 da, and met with someone and said, okay, I am going to lease this building, right? And he was calling, like, when are you going to come in and sign the lease or what have you? And I was like, oh, this is a big step. And in my nerves, when you talk about like the fear factor, I'm like, this is a big commitment, because our business is an online business. So it's a home-based business. And this was going from being a home-based business to having real bills and signing a lease. So, my nerves were like, this is what I want to do. But I just wasn't ready to ink that deal. And then everything shut down in March. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. I know people say you shouldn't procrastinate, but thank you for that procrastination. So, but at the same time, my business just came to a standstill because everything shut down. And back then we were being told like, oh, it'll just be for a few months, and then because the warmth will kill the virus. You remember when they were saying,
I do remember that.
it'll be warm and it'll kill the virus or what have you. And it's just like the flu, right? It's just like the flu. But when you are, and we provide transportation for our tours, and so when you are in close proximity, one, the vineyards had shut down, but two, it just wasn't safe at that time to be 10 plus people deep in a vehicle.
Right.
So, a few days I did have a pity party, like, it was a nice business, what am I going to do? And I saw that people were doing impromptu happy hours on Zoom. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try teaching a wine class online, like people get together and what have you. I don't think
Stop, because you did exactly what business owners do. I was just trying to think I was going to try it. Like, hold up, stop. You don't go from, people doing
happy hours,
online happy hour. So I'm like, there's a space. You missed something. You missed something in between. Like, what?
All I said was, I was like, okay, how can I figure out how to get wine to people?
Okay, right. That's what you asked the question. You asked yourself a question. Okay, all right.
And I said, and I was like, well, we can do virtual wine tastings. But honestly, Ken, in my heart, I really did not think it was going to work.
Okay.
Because I was like, this is why I didn't think it was going to work. I said, because people are already meeting for happy hour. Why would they pay me to meet? Like, they could do this for free if they have a Zoom account. But what I later realized is that people want some type of structure, and they were wanting to do something that had structure, and that they could learn something and socialize with people. And so my first few Zoom calls were actually with my colleagues in Goldman Sachs, because the program was ending and they wanted to do something social, and I was like, well, let me try this out here.
Right.
And then I use a mailing software, and in my, like everybody has a weekly newsletter, the people who own the mailing software saw what I was sending out to my subscribers list, which tells you that people do read your emails.
Right.
and the people who own the company read your emails. So They do monitor that. And they reached out to me and they were like, oh, this is a great idea. And they actually, because they were looking for different businesses, how they pivoted.
Mhm.
And so they reached out to me to highlight this particular pivot, which, still I was thinking like, all right, but it had not taken off.
Right.
But it by word of mouth, and it took off, and people were reaching out. And then the fact that the numbers went up in the winter, um, people wanted something to do. And it's interesting that the majority of my clients who get that service are not individuals. So it's not, B2C, it's B2B. I
Okay.
have a lot of companies who, still need to do something or want to do something to keep their teams connected
Right.
virtually. And we offer that service for them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Again,
Mm-hmm.
and again, that's the, if that's not the universe, I don't know what it is, man. I mean, and when we try to say universe because we have a number of different religions who are involved in Phoenix
Right,
Rock
right.
community,
Mm-hmm.
but if that's not the universe, I don't know what it is in regards
Right.
to not only did you make the pivot, but the folks who were doing your newsletters, like, hey, they're reading your
Mm-hmm.
newsletters, and so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's exciting. If that's not inspirational, I don't know what is. I'm here to point out the stuff that should be inspirational to folks. They should find nuggets in. That's my job, I suppose. But let's mm, that's a nice pivot. I really like that. But again, we go back to your thought process. Like, so you've been in business since 2013, right?
Correct. Correct.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew you was, this is an old movie allegory, but I knew you was sure enough when I looked at your website and and saw your and when you answered the pre-interview questions, I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
she's for real, right? Because I'm gonna tell you that nobody had their target market down like you had your target market down. But then during this conversation, when I
Mm-hmm.
realized that you was part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000, which is a very, if you're not familiar with the Goldman Sachs 10,000, is look for it in your. I know they have one in Philadelphia. I know they have one in
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore and in DC. Look for the Goldman. If you're in business, look for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 because everybody I know that has been through that program, every business owner I know has been through that program raves about it. So
Yeah, it is. It is definitely. And it's so funny because you're only in that program for 8 weeks, maybe 8 to 10 weeks, right? 8 to 10 weeks. And so we met in person. And then towards the end of the program, we had to go virtual because of COVID or what have you. But in that 8 to 10 weeks, you grow so much. It stretches you so much as a professional. And you develop bonds with these strangers that you just met 8 to 10 weeks ago. And they become your business advisors, they become family friends. I mean, I don't know what what they do. Like if there's a mind melt from Men in Black, I don't know what they do, but it is amazing how you stretch yourself. You stretch yourself. And there are people who have, now this didn't happen in my group, but I have heard people who are like crying in class because you get to a certain point where it becomes a self-development awakening,
mm,
and you hit that breakthrough
right.
from the information that you're being asked to process and to grow your business. And it's not just growing your business, but you grow professionally and personally also in that process. So I recommend it to, and I know there's similar programs, but I do recommend it to any entrepreneur, business person out there. And it's and and people who were in my class have been in business for 20 years, and people who have been in business for only 5 years. So it's not like, oh, these are new business owners. No, one thing Goldman Sachs does insist on is that you have been in business for a while.
Right.
Because you have something to bring to the table to
right.
work. Yeah.
So we went over this question, but I try to ask all the questions. But you already answered it. But I got to ask it so that I can cut. I can cut it when I need to cut it. What were some of your biggest challenges in business?
The biggest challenge was financial.
Okay.
The biggest challenge is not just financial, but being liquid.
Okay. Explain that.
Because I self-financed my business in the beginning.
Okay.
Right? And when you don't have liquidity, then you dip in. I have dipped into my own personal to keep my company afloat, because if we, we're doing wine tastings or what have you, I got to purchase the wine, I got to, what have you. If I don't have that liquidity to purchase that inventory or what have you, I can't take certain jobs. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't take certain jobs. And then I personally think if you have that liquidity, you just operate differently.
Okay.
Like, you operate like, oh, that credit card going to go through. Like, you're not sitting there going, all right, well, if I put something on here and then I put another, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You just operate differently. You make your decisions differently, because that's one less thing that you are working about. So I would say to anybody who's starting off, you don't have to have a slush fund, but you have to take into consideration, if you're purchasing inventory, if you have to make those types of investments, make sure you have that funding behind you, so you're not nervous about what your next move is going to be.
Okay. So how did you said you self-finance, so we didn't talk about that in regards to when you started your business. How did you make your first purchases? Did you save? Did you just,
I saved. I used my savings.
Okay.
To start off. And I was cautious. Like I said, I rented my vehicles in the beginning because I wasn't sure where I was going to be. And it wasn't until 2 years into the business that I said, okay, I'm going to be here for a while. So it is more cost effective for me to purchase a vehicle instead of renting a vehicle. And so that's when I made the decision to purchase.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you jumped out there at some point. Well, we know after you decided.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you stop looking for a job?
Like immediately. Immediately. Yeah.
And again, I always have to say, we don't have anything against folks with jobs. We like jobs. Actually, we work hard to provide jobs, mm-hmm. But we're building a community of business owners. We just believe that there's business class, mm-hmm. And we believe that some of you ought to have jobs, want to be business owners, and that's what we're here for.
Right, and you can have it. You can have a job and still operate as a business owner in your job.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can take that tool set and operate in that manner in your job.
So let's go to I got tells. So we ask everybody this, but it's not easy being a business owner. So yeah. We ask everybody, because we believe in this, what is your why? What is that thing that keeps you going? Like,
Um, that's a very good question because there are times where you're like, I'm just gonna get a job. There are times where you don't want to deal with, but I had found myself in the business that I was focusing on the business, and I had forgotten why I went into wine because I love wine. So now I make sure that I, still behind the scenes running the business or what have you, but I do wine centric things. I still do tastings. I still talk about wine. I still do wine education because that's the part that I really love. And so that's my why, is to continue to do that.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds fantastic. So I don't want to be the only one who knows how detailed and your target market is, because I thought that was amazing. So please tell us, who is your target market?
So my target market, specifically women, and they are between the ages of 25 and 55. And they enjoy mostly social media, mostly Facebook, which I know that sounds kind of funny for 25, and then Instagram. And they have an income, the combined household income over 100K, mostly in long-term relationships, so either married or have a partner, and they have children, and most of their children are like mid high school age children. They're definitely wine people who enjoy wine but may not be experts at it, enjoy social gatherings with girlfriends, and wine, food, conversation, enjoy like trash TV. Um, the no nothing against the Real Housewives, but like they could have a heavy conversation about any one of the Real Housewives franchise, and they're somewhat abreast in popular culture and politics.
So, and again, this is one of those. Now, if you are out there trying to develop a target market, that's a target market. She knows exactly who she's selling to. And I'm out of the target market, and it's not because I'm a man. It's because I have no idea who is who on the Real Housewives. I cannot have a conversation about.
But what is funny, Ken, is that because men don't, not that I know of, and please correct me, but men don't say, hey, Joe, what you doing this weekend? Let's go on a wine tour. Like men don't do that. But what men do is, oh, it's my wife, it's our anniversary. Let me do something special for her, and let's go on a wine tour. Or, hey, the couples in the neighborhood are getting together, and the men are coming along. And when that happens, the men tend to be more engaged on the tours than the women are. So the men may not be our primary market, but definitely a secondary market for like special occasions, birthdays.
Right. So anniversaries and birthdays. So all the guys out there, anniversaries and birthdays, I'm gonna need you to go to 301. Actually, this is the time to give you a website.
Oh, sure. Our website is vino301.com.
All right. And your Instagram?
Instagram is at vino301.com.
All right.
And our Facebook is The Wine Concierge.
Okay. So all you guys out there that it's early, it's February, so there's birthdays, there's anniversaries coming up. I know March is a big anniversary month. So, go get your wine, go get your knowledge, and, make sure you get in touch with Leslie. So Leslie, one of the things we also have, because we're, again, in building a community, and we've had a number of folks, a number of business owners who've been interviewed. What's on your whiteboard? What's something that possibly another business owner that you have a need that another business owner in the Phoenix Rising community could fill for you right now? That you're like, man, if I could get that off my whiteboard, I could take the next step and move forward.
So great question. So my 2021 goal is to build my tribe, that I call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to expand the things that I am not good at, and somebody can take that and run. So I am looking for new marketing people. I'm looking for a sales force, somebody who can sell to B2B. Now that I see that this is definitely an interest, so that is what I'm looking for.
Okay, all right. So actually, that's funny. I think Ramon. I think there's a couple of people who would really fit what you need. So we're gonna put you in touch, and you all can have a conversation. Okay. And this is kind of what, if you're watching, this is what Phoenix Rising is. We're connectors. We're connecting the community because like I said, man, after I build my superhero class, then I gotta build some Avengers. I gotta build some Justice Leagues. I gotta even put some Super Friends together. So some of you might be a little too young for that one, but
it's like the Wonder Twin powers.
Yes.
Activate.
Yes. So we try to get all that done. So it's like I said, I really like to be mindful of folks' time. So I don't want to hold you too long. I want to make sure that that's what I wanted. That's also other thing we always do, because we got the Audible affiliate. The link should be down in the comments. But we ask everybody this because we're building a library also. We're building a library, and that's why one of the questions on the forum is a book that has inspired you, a book that has been meaningful to you. What's a book that you would recommend?
I would say The Four Agreements. Okay.
Tell us how that affected you. Tell us how that affected you.
Oh, it changed my philosophy of how I run my business. Basically, the Four Agreements is that you have to always try to do your best, which is something, our parents tell us, but always don't phone it in, do your best. Your word is, basically your word is your bond. So you speak with integrity. You don't gossip, which can sometimes be entertaining and harmful. And I'm trying to think of the fourth one, but it's not that big of a book. And you also can get it on Audible, what have you. But it is just basically leading your life with integrity. And if you have a team that you work with, is ensuring that they are also working with integrity as well. And so that's one of my guiding books that I like.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. And we are, again, the Audible affiliate link should be in the comments. Check out The Four Agreements. Leslie, we're going to ask you again to give all of your contact information, because again, you are in business to fill a need. And I know too many folks who drink wine to know that you're not filling a serious need.
Right. Yeah, so you can find me at vino301.com. Our online store is thewineconcierge.co, so thewineconcierge.co. You can also find me on Facebook, Vino 301 Wine Concierge, and on Instagram, Vino 301, and then on Twitter, Vino 301 Wine. And just Google us. We're all over the place. No, yeah,
All right.
just Google
Yeah.
us.
So, and if you're traveling to, I mean, when things open back up, when you're traveling to the Washington D.C., Maryland area, give Leslie a call or hit her up on one of her social medias so you can get a tour of Maryland wine. There's a winery in Maryland that has a great Riesling. It's over, I think it's over in Baltimore County over there.
Oh, is it Bordy Vineyard?
Again, I'm the
That's in
man.
Baltimore County.
I'm the man. Remember, I don't. I just know that. I just know it's a great Riesling.
There's a few places, yeah, and there's Bassiana. There's a few places. Just to give you perspective, like I mentioned that it was maybe 50 back then. Now it's over 100 vineyards in the state of Maryland. There's one in almost every county.
Oh, fantastic! So that's grown. That's they as your business has grown, they've grown, and that's I'm sure it's increased the need for someone like you that has the knowledge. So that's, and again, we go back to taking that step, man. There's a net there. You just can't see it, and the net is usually hard work. You know, if you step off and start pedaling, the bike will fly.
Yes, exactly.
So, but Leslie, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We always
Thanks for the opportunity.
We always try to give our guests the last word, and this is your time to inspire. So, for that one person who is going to be moved by the next words you say, if you had, what would you give that person if you went back to 2013 and wanted somebody to give you the words?
I would say be your best. Just be your best. You might fail. It may not turn out, but you were your best at that time, and that's okay. Just be your best.
And I can't add anything to that. Phoenix Rising community, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time. We are gone.